Next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Good Thursday morning. Amy Jacobson here. Charles Thomas in for Dan Proft. Good morning, friend.
And good morning to you, Amy.
I can't believe you're 74 years old. I'm still letting that sink in.
Yeah, most of that. I got a few weeks to go before that, but
Oh, well, when's the big day?
May 3rd.
Oh, you're a May
3rd.
baby.
A May baby. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like what, 6-8 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, who cares? Just numbers.
I'm pretty excited about it. I mean,
Yeah, you only turned 74 once.
you only turn 74 once, and that's I'm in my 8th decade,
Wow.
and I can still, hang out a little bit, and I like that.
So are you a big flyer? I know you were a correspondent for ABC News, stationed in Europe. You've probably been all over the world.
Huge flyer. In fact, I can remember one year I logged 200,000 real miles, actual miles on an airplane.
What's your airline of choice?
Back in the day, when I was really doing my heavyweight flying, it was TWA. Do you remember that?
I loved that. Was my first flight ever.
Really?
Chicago to LA.
Really? Yeah.
I thought they had the best food on airplanes.
They
Oh, my
did.
grandma.
They
have
absolutely did, because I had so many points, I could actually get in first class. And they actually had a flaming meal one time on an airplane. Now I said,
like
wait a minute, they got to be
Greek
violating.
cheese?
Huh? Some
Like
kind
the
of
Greek cheese when they light it on fire?
Oh yeah, like saganaki. Yeah, it was. Yeah, but they had they did have great food on those airplanes, and I could get on the first class because I had so many miles, and they had a huge seat that I could lay back and fly from here to points unknown.
Yeah, and then TWA merged with American Airlines. So
Did
now
they?
are you with
Is that
American?
what happened to them? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're no longer there.
Right.
But,
Nor there's no more Pan Am or Eastern Airlines or
nope.
the list go AirTran. What else did we used to
We
fly?
had
That's all gone.
Northwest Airlines.
I loved America West when I lived out in Tucson and El Paso. I used that a lot. Loved them. They're gone. So everybody merged with somebody else.
Yeah.
And Northwest Airlines, which used to be called Northwest Orient, my uncle was a captain of that, and he flew the first 777 from Detroit to Seattle and then Detroit to Anchorage. So I've always been into flying, and now, they took a survey of people there's been a string of accidents with the Delta crash in Toronto. Luckily, all 80 passengers survived, and then the American Airlines crash with the helicopter, the Army helicopter in D.C., and then yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, there was two, I think it was a Cessna and another plane that crashed midair in Tucson, Arizona.
Really? I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, so it's, but that was there was no air traffic control tower there. It was an airfield. So, and when that happens, you have to look out for the other pilot. There's not a lot of communication. So with more on that and everything else, airlines, Rob Mark, business jet pilot, former air traffic controller, and publisher of jetwine.com. He joins us this morning. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Hey, good morning. And, I just want to interject. One other airline that went down the tubes was Chicago's own Midway Airlines.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, remember those.
Where did they fly to? I can't remember.
Well, we went to more regional destinations. I think we used to go as far, occasionally out to L.A., but usually to the East Coast, and a lot of smaller aircraft we used for regional flights. That was before before they were even called commuters. But anyway, they were a good company to work for.
Now, what's your airline of choice?
I don't think I have one anymore. I used to be a loyal Southwest guy, and I was a loyal American guy before that. But they all pretty much treat you the same, and so I just can't really spare the brain power to try to stay in touch with everybody.
So now you fly your own planes. You're a business jet pilot?
Well, when I can, but when I have to go on the airlines, I just take the best fare that I can get for the seat I want.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about what happened over Tucson yesterday. And there's no air traffic control towers, and that It reminded me a lot of the Bob Collins' accident. Remember when he ran into
up in Waukegan?
Waukegan? Yep.
Well, people might be surprised to know that there are a lot of those smaller airfields that don't have control towers, and that mostly based with small aircraft. I mean, this accident included a Cessna 172, which is a small four-place travel airplane, usually a training airplane too. The airport out there is 2 runways, and everybody kind of talks on the radio and looks out for everybody else. It's what we call see and be seen, and that's the basic rule of flying visually, is you look out the window and you make sure there's not anybody else there. And you talk on the radio to try to keep everybody else in touch with what you're doing, and they tell you what they're doing, and so you kind of have to be on your toes if it's a busy airport. And I've not flown into this airport out there northwest of Tucson, but I understand it's a fairly busy airport.
And so there's been a string of accidents. Of course, the mainstream media is blaming Trump. Here's a montage of that.
Now, this is a Canadian air traffic control tower, and this is under Canadian authority once it crosses the border. And yet, as you know, there has been this talk about maybe staff cuts at the FAA as a part of President Trump's effort to trim down the federal workforce. This is going to feed into all of these recent incidents, and the safety of the total air traffic system is going to be very much a part of the conversation as we go forward.
Incompetence and chaos going on, and we should not put up with it.
Well,
and by the way, egg prices are supposed to come down, not airplanes.
Well,
This is happening against the backdrop of massive cuts across the federal government, including at the FAA. Hundreds of FAA employees have been laid off as part of Elon Musk going through all the federal agencies. And
so is there any correlation between FAA cuts in personnel and these accidents happening?
Well, certainly not the one that we're just talking about out in Tucson. I mean,
right.
There aren't any FAA personnel stationed out there anyway. And as far as the other accidents, it's way too early to tell. But I do agree with that. These Fire Acts cuts that are going on at the FAA. I mean, they're just coming at a bad time right now, because the public's confidence really does get shaken in air travel when we have this many accidents in such a short span of time.
So, and a question for you too, new Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. He X'd out. Mayor Pete failed for 4 years to address the air traffic controller shortage and upgrade our outdated World War II era air traffic control system. In less than 4 weeks, we've already begun the process and are engaging the smartest minds in the entire world. When you worked as an air traffic controller, did you find that system to be old and antiquated?
Oh, yeah, we did. I mean, and the technology that FAA uses is pretty old, and they usually have proprietary equipment that they eventually can't make parts for, and when things start to break down, they're kind of patching it together. And but to be fair, no president, if you want to give the president credit or damnation for it, no president in the last 20 years has been able to work on that air traffic control system. And the current president had, obviously had a 4-year term before the one he has now, and they didn't do anything then either.
What about this fact that this plane in Canada could flip over and all the passengers walk away? Not all of them walk away, but nobody was killed. I found that to be the most remarkable thing about that crash after seeing it on video.
Well, thank goodness people listened and actually had their seatbelts on. because that's a prime example of what would have happened if the people did not have, if they weren't belted in, they would have hit the ceiling when the airplane rolled over. Obviously, airplanes are not supposed to do that, but that's why we tell people to belt up before landing. And the other issue, I think, is luckily there was nobody silly enough to try to hold a small infant on their lap, because that baby would have gone flying. And pilots hate that. Flight attendants hate it. It's all legal to carry a lap child, and so the parents can save some cash, but it's not safe.
Well, actually, one of the 18 people that were injured was a child who was sitting on their mother's lap, so I'm sure we'll hear more about that. But yeah, I know that's always a concern.
That is interesting. Wow.
And they were hanging it upside down like bats. But Delta last night they came out with an offer. They're offering each passenger $30,000 who were on the flight. Would you take that deal? Because I think counseling might be more than $30,000 for a lifetime.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's nice. It's nice cash to say we're sorry, but I think there's probably, if I were an attorney, I would be saying you might not want to take that, because I'm sure the lawsuits are already in progress for that for those passengers. But that's something beyond my area of expertise. Right, but I hate to turn cash away.
Right, and also then the first lawsuit has been filed against the FAA and the Army in the American Airlines D.C. crash. A Connecticut father of 3. They're filing a $250 million lawsuit. When are we going to know whose fault it was? I mean, it looks, from all intents and purposes, it looks like it was the helicopter's fault.
Well, it's probably going to take a year, I would say, before we're going to see a final report out of the NTSB, because they have so many dark corners to go down, and what they label it a probable cause, which is the absolute damning factor. However, there are going to be other contributing factors that might include something the tower controller did or didn't do, or something the pilot of the helicopter did or didn't do. It could be, we don't know exactly what. Could have been a piece of equipment failure on board the helicopter that made them think they were in the right place. But again, it's going to take at least a year to pull all those factors together.
And still, in your mind, flying is safer than driving?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, see, when we talk about the statistics of flying, I mean, there's just no doubt that it's still safer. But that's left brain stuff, and that's the logical side. But people don't always think with their left brain. Sometimes it's the right side, the emotional side, and people are still frightened. And I'm just saying that, as I did before, that with all the chaos that we've had in the last few weeks around air travel, and then the administration starts axing people in the FAA. These are the support people. They didn't cut any controllers, but the support people that help keep all that old technology running, that makes people really uncomfortable.
Do you think some of these people will be called back, though? Oh, I'm sorry, Charles, for interrupting, because some people from the EPA from Chicago who were cut got emails saying that they're reinstating their position. Has that happened, to the best of your knowledge, at the FAA?
I have not heard of that happening with anybody from FAA. But again, I mean, the fact that did happen, like early on when they offered everybody a buyout, air traffic controllers were included in that, until someone realized, oops, wait a minute, we need these people.
Let me say, as it relates, unfortunately, are only focused on.
Sorry about that, Charles. What were you going to ask?
Yeah, I just wanted to know this whole business of are the standards lower for pilots and air traffic controllers today as opposed to, let's say, 10, 15 years ago?
The standards. Well, the standards could be many things. The standards to become a pilot, become a licensed pilot, no, those haven't changed. Now, the standards that companies use to hire people. I can't speak to that because I just simply don't know.
All right. Thanks, Rob Mark. Always a pleasure. You can find him as the publisher of Whine, jetwine.com. He's a business pilot and a former air traffic controller. Thanks, Rob, for joining us. Have a great day.
Hey, take care.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer. Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160.